there's too many of you crying.
About where we are in the United States of America. And we truly have to talk about the state of the African American community. Because as I tell people, America can only be as strong as the sum of its parts. And if one of the integral parts of the United States of America is suffering, as we see in the African American community, where we have 16.7% unemployment among adults. Adult male blacks, 20% unemployment. Black teenagers, 50% unemployment. Which is why you saw what happened this past summer in Philadelphia. Because we have young people who don't have anything to do. You know, growing up in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, I knew one simple thing. When summertime came around, I would be able to go to Mickey D's or Burger King or Kentucky Fried Chicken or wherever, and I knew that they were going to be looking for those high schools and there would be a job for us there. And if you all remember, once upon a time, when you went into these fast food restaurants, you saw one adult. And that adult was the manager during the summer. And the rest you saw those young kids. And even during school year, maybe you get the opportunity to work on the weekends or maybe one night out of the week. But when you go into these fast food restaurants, what do you see now? You see all adults working there. You even see seniors that are working there. And this is part of the failure of the policies that are coming out of Washington, D.C. It is adversely affecting our community. You go across Washington, D.C., and there are certain districts in Washington, D.C., where the unemployment rate as a whole is over 30%. Right here in the nation's capital. You know, we unveiled that incredible statue of Dr. Martin Luther King. And that's a very special statue to me because my school, my elementary school, Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic School, is right across the street from Ebenezer Baptist Church. And every day at the end of the school, when I had to walk down old Sweet Auburn Avenue to go down to Butler Street YMCA, which is where I learned how to box, where I learned how to play basketball, where I learned how to swim. I walked past Ebenezer. I walked past Big Bethel. I walked past the SCLC. I walked past the cradle of black economic development and professionalism in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. But when I went back there this past March, I saw a place that's been totally devastated. See, Martin Luther King Jr. would be crying if he was still alive today. Because that dream has truly not been achieved. And what must we do? Well, when I look at people like Don Scoggins, who I met a few years back, Don Scoggins is a front runner. Don Scoggins that makes it possible for you young black professionals and conservatives to be here today. Because when nobody thought being a black conservative was popular, there was Don Scoggins. So what we must do is we must reconnect with the foundational principles and values that Buck and Snooks West brought me up with in Atlanta, Georgia. Because if not, we're going to lose not just one generation, not just two generations, but we will lose 3 generations within the African American community if we do not go back and understand that one of the critical aspects of who we are is our faith in God and our faith in country. You know, that's what my father taught me. That's what my mother taught me. That's when you sit down and you have a father who served in World War II, who made sure that every Sunday you got up, you did your chores, and you went off to Sunday school. And after Sunday school, you stayed there in church. And those women in the church, you didn't bump your gums when church was going on. They taught you respect. They taught you discipline. They taught you that the greatest thing, the greatest weapon in the world is that which is between your ears, your brain. You think about how great the black community used to be as far as its excellence in education, as far as the things that we were seeing ourselves and how we were helping ourselves grow and become because of the involvement of the church. You know, think about the programs that we had in the inner city through our churches. You had the youth basketball, you had the youth baseball, you had all of those great trips that kids could go on, and even some knucklehead like me sang in the church choir. Don't ask me to sing today because I'll hurt your ears. But it were those things that we were able to be a part of. But when those things, when that faith went away, all of a sudden those young people who were looking to join something, be a part of something, they went from something that was positive and now they go to something that is negative. You know, gangs when I was growing up was about 5 or 6 guys that played basketball against some guys from another street. That was how you got your bragging rights. Now gangs are out there killing each other in our communities. Black on black crime is one of the most epic, proportionate travesties in the United States of America right now. And it's all because we forgot one of the critical things about who we are as a community is our faith in God and in country. You know, the other thing, we must restore our belief in family. You know, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the Democratic senator from New York, said very simply, if you take the black man out of the household, if you take him away from that family structure, if you start to reward young women for having children out of wedlock, you will destroy the essence of what is the black community. And look at where we are today. These out of wedlock pregnancies that we're having. Look at where we are today with the incarceration rate of our young men. Look at where we are today with the dropout rates in the inner city. All because we decided to get away from another one of our foundational principles that we hold dear. You know, another thing that my parents taught me was individual responsibility and accountability. It was not about, as you brought up, blaming anybody else. It was about what are you going to do for yourself? Because there are opportunities out there in this great nation. And that's why my father and my older brother and my mother taught me that America is the greatest nation that the world has ever known. You can sit back and, you know, not be a part of it. But they taught me about a pride in not having to say I owe someone for helping me to get somewhere. Go out there and do it yourselves. And they taught me that my skin color was never a burden to me. That I could go out and compete in this great nation like anyone else. And see, that's why when I had that scholarship to go to Southern University and I thought about all those pretty girls who were going to be at Southern University, I was like, boy, this is going to be a good time. Dad said, no way. He said, you're going to go to the University of Tennessee. I said, but Dad, why? He said, because if you want to go and be an officer in the United States Army, you got to be in an environment where you're going to not be the majority. And you got to learn how to compete against people. And you got to learn to stand up on your own. And that's the type of responsibility and accountability we have to have in our community. We don't need people that are creating more victims in the black community. Because when you create more victims, then people have to be dependent upon something, and that thing for which they're dependent upon is called government. And then government ends up having the power over them. That's why when Don Scoggins says Republicans for black empowerment, do you understand how powerful those 3 words are? Black empowerment, not black enslavement. Because all you have to do is study the history of the Democrat Party. The history of the Democrat Party boils down to 4 S's. And those 4 S's have never been good for the black community. The first one is slavery. The second one is secession. The third one is segregation. And the fourth one is socialism. Because if you continue to make people dependent upon government, and government has to continue to grow, that means the hard-earned dollars, the hard-earned money that once went into a vibrant economic black community now comes up here to Washington, D.C. And that's not how we turn it around. Individual responsibility and accountability needs to come back into the black community. That is how we will have the reinvestment, the innovation, the ingenuity to come back into our communities so we can have those small businesses that grow. We can have sustainable economic growth. We can have sustainable job growth. But we got to go back and remember those founding principles that our parents fought for, that our grandparents fought for.